Comedians with depressing histories. Hello, and welcome back to True Interest. So many people who make us laugh struggle to find their own laughter, and this phenomenon has its own psychological label, the sad clown paradox. For whatever reason, the correlation between misfortune and mirth is especially strong in the true comedic greats, the human factories that refine raw pain into concentrated wit. In this video, we take a look at comedians who were given the worst of tragedies and gave us back the best of comedy. Stay tuned. Jim Carrey. Nowadays, Jim Carrey is a multimillionaire who could retire this second and coast off of royalties as long as he needed. But before the lucrative television and movie roles, Carrey grew up poor. Poor as in homeless, traveling vagrant poor. Carrey spent a large part of his teenage years in serious poverty. His family's fortunes varied year to year, but never rose to the level of dependable comfort. The Carrey clan spent years with no house nor even apartment, living instead altogether in a van and later a tent. Even the uptick in the family situation, when his father gained lucrative employment, still saw teenage Carrey and his brother working as night crew janitors for his father's employer just to make ends meet. Even when he got out, Carrey spent years living the life of a struggling comedian, which many can attest is not much of an upgrade. Robin Williams. Robin Williams might just be the most beloved comedian ever. In addition to his extraordinary stand-up work, he starred in a range of fan-favorite films and stole almost every scene he was in. His relentless energy and manic delivery made him both completely unique and legendary. But behind that endless brightness were dark battles with disease and addiction. Williams spent much of the 70s and 80s addicted to cocaine, and though he eventually quit the drug, he then had another battle with alcoholism. Underpinning all of this was Williams' well-known struggles with depression. Eventually, and only because of the autopsy after his death by suicide, it was discovered that Williams had dementia with Lewy bodies, which was causing his mind to unravel at the seams. His final days were plagued with anxiety, paranoia, and lost memories. Mitch Hedberg. Mitch Hedberg was one of the all-time great short-form joke writers. An average stand-up set from Hedberg would contain dozens of pithy, witty jokes, and his impressive facility for wordplay and observation made him a huge cult hit. Hedberg was also heavily addicted to drugs and never fully committed to getting clean. Hedberg was outspoken about his drug use. He often discussed it on stage and in interviews. Perhaps his most famous joke is, "I used to do drugs. I still do, but I used to too." Sadly, he was equally outspoken about not wanting to quit. Friend and fellow comedian Artie Lange, best known for his tenure on Mad TV, once quoted Hedberg as saying, "Guys, don't try to help me. I want to do heroin until I die." In 2005, at age 37, his wish, whether joking or not, came true. John Belushi. The theme of these accounts should be apparent by now, and John Belushi was no exception. Belushi was a member of the Not Ready for Primetime Players, the original SNL lineup. He consistently stole scenes with his physical humor and energy. As he became more famous and began working on more projects at once, Belushi started finding that energy elsewhere, most notably cocaine. As Belushi began using more and more, with increasingly obvious effects, his friends and coworkers, including Carrie Fisher and Animal House director John Landis, attempted to coax Belushi into rehab. They failed. As he fell deeper into his addiction, Belushi began using heroin. It was an overdose of cocaine and heroin, also called a speedball, that ultimately ended his life at age 33. Chris Farley. It's hard to mention the tragic rise and fall of John Belushi without then mentioning Chris Farley. Farley's career and personal trajectory mirrored Belushi's uncannily closely. Farley, like Belushi, became famous as a cast member on SNL, and again like Belushi, was known for his high energy, physical humor despite his large size. Some of his most memorable skits include Chip and Dale's and Van Down by the Mirror. Seriously, they're hilarious, and you should go watch them right after you read this article. The comparison continues as Farley also began taking on more and more projects, all the while falling deeper into a life of drugs. Farley's obesity caused its own problems as well. All told, The actor sought help for obesity and drug addiction 17 times by his death, though none were successful. He died of an overdose of cocaine and morphine at age 33. Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor is one of the greatest comedians of all time, and over the course of his life, brought happiness to millions. You'd be hard-pressed, however, to find a single period of that life in which Pryor found any lasting happiness himself. Pryor grew up in a brothel where his mother was a prostitute, even turning tricks for his town mayor at one point. His mother eventually abandoned him and left him to his grandmother, the brothel's owner, who frequently beat him. He was molested multiple times, first by an older kid and later by a Catholic priest. His adult life was scarcely much better. Pryor was divorced 7 times, had recurring problems with drugs and alcohol, and even infamously set himself on fire while high on cocaine. It was his constant smoking that eventually killed him, as it partially brought on the coronary artery disease that caused his fatal heart attack.